Sit quietly for a moment and think. What comes to your mind when you imagine a 4-year-old child? Perhaps in your mind you see a child playing or a child being hugged by his mother. Maybe you see children playing in a group or the curious, wide-open eyes of child learning about the world. What you will probably not think about in connection to small children are the following scenes. These scenes are from public drag queen shows aimed at very young children. These shows are now being performed in many countries worldwide, Germany included. Under the guise of tolerance and acceptance of so-called gender diversity, our children are meant to be prepared for a colorful future. However, not a word is said about what these performances can do to the souls of children. Child protectionists and social pedagogues urgently warn that children can be massively unsettled by these shows and can even be severely traumatized. Social education worker Margaret Teves reports from her professional practice in an interview. This is about the consequences of confronting the topic of sexuality too early. She says touching upon topics such as transsexuality and gender fluidity does take away a child's natural development. It would result in massive insecurity and behavioral problems for the children. These are then often treated by psychologists and therapists. It causes one problem after another, Tev says. Drag queen book readings for kindergarten children have been taking place in many German cities for years. Some have been firmly established in the public life of the city and are regularly held in educational institutions. There, the children are confronted with these drag queens who wear garish makeup and are often dressed in sexualized clothing. The books presented there are often about transgender. In plain language, this means children or animals that do not feel comfortable in their natural sex want to change to the opposite sex. On the website of the association Demo für alle, you can find well-founded background information on these so-called reading lessons. There you can read:
some of the artists are first and foremost activists and have read the classics of gender ideology. They understand that the perversion of sexuality and gender identity is the means of choice for a subversive infiltration of the social order. Their agenda is not a secret conspiracy, but follows scientific methodology that can be read in the article Drag Pedagogy, the playful practice of queer imagination in early childhood. The aim is to deeply embed queer pedagogy in educational institutions for children and to break the stereotypes of teachers, all rules and boundaries in general.
At this point, let's return to the thought experiment at the beginning of the program. Ask yourself what comes to your mind when you think of the most important needs of a small child. Love, a feeling of security, care, space to develop freely, playtime. These may be the thoughts that come to your mind. However, if you listen to the so-called experts of the Federal Center for Health Education, BZGA Germany, you get a completely different list. Children between the ages of 0 and 4 are said to be sexual beings. They should be educated about early childhood masturbation and learn how to feel pleasure and lust when they touch their own body. They should discover bodies and genitals and get to know sensual experiences of physical closeness. 4-year-old children should be able to interpret sexual feelings such as closeness, lust, and arousal. This is not just a theory, as it is already being implemented in Germany and other countries on behalf of the UN. The following is a report of a young woman who has started a voluntary social year in a kindergarten. However, she had to leave the kindergarten early because she did not agree with the sex education concept that was implemented there. We will now show you a short excerpt from her video report.
One day, a woman came from a certain aid organization that is well known. I won't mention the name. This aid organization has a blue logo, and the whole thing happened in Rhineland-Palatinate on the border to Baden-Württemberg. I came to the nursery as usual, and that day a woman from this aid organization came and presented the future plan for all nurseries in Germany. So it had already been decided, confirmed, and it was just presented, so to say. And it started with this. We want to explain and offer children the opportunity to masturbate in the future. I was completely shocked. I was blushing, I was hot, so I thought, what the fuck is going on here? What the fuck is this? Absolutely sick. I looked to the right, to the left, and one of the teachers was a pastor, by the way. Everyone was completely satisfied, completely happy. We think it's great. Wow. I was like, okay, that can't be true, can it? And in this daycare center, there was a sports room where the children did gymnastics, and it was quite big. And then they said, well, this woman from the aid organization said, what you could do, for example, is divide the sports room in half and buy these small tents and set them up. I had seen online that many talk of 3-year-olds, but no, it was for the 2 to 6-year-olds, that 2 to 6-year-olds would have the opportunity to masturbate in these tents, and if they didn't know what that was, it would be explained to them, and they would be given the opportunity to explore their sexuality in kindergarten. Do you think the parents will know about it? No, it was discussed that this should be part of everyday life and that parents shouldn't know anything about it because it was said to be normal for children to know about sexuality. No, this is not normal.
The UN is furthering this concept in elementary schools. This goes even much further in the so-called sexual education of the children. A comprehensive report on the internet platform Stop World Control reports on the UN agenda and its implementation in schools. There are games that introduce children to the topic with precise details about oral sex, homosexual sexual behavior, such as anal intercourse, etc. Even if it's hard to believe, male genitalia are depicted in various sizes on memory playing cards. The children should then find the matching pairs. We cannot and do not want to show the pictures here. But remember, our children are at the mercy of these images without any protection. Parents whose children have come into contact with such concepts report the following disturbing facts. Young children diddle each other, put each other's genitals in their mouths, or peek under the edge of the toilet door. A mother from the USA confirmed these statements. Her child also experienced terrible things during sex education. She said, "Another girl touched my daughter, masturbation." She said bad words and used her cell phone for pornography. She turned to the authorities to protect her child and was met with deterrent harshness. Nobody wanted to help her. It is becoming clear that our children are in great danger. Even the very youngest children are sexualized and exposed to things that cause them lasting damage. They are systematically traumatized. Any sense of shame, any sense of orientation is completely taken away from them. If you take away children's natural sense of shame, they can no longer listen to their natural instinct, which clearly tells them that they need to protect their bodies. This makes them extremely vulnerable and easy prey for sex offenders. In the program WHO and UN, Pedophile Hands Off Our Children, KLA TV showed the detailed backgrounds to these sex education concepts. Study this important program in view of these dramatic developments. Dear parents and relatives, save your children and stand up against these crimes. Raise your voice and express your indignation loudly when you come into contact with such concepts. Say no to any abuse of our little ones. They need you and your protection more than ever.